Hello, thank you for volunteering for my Girl Scout project. I will videotape you answering some easy questions about your life so your stories will live on long after your time. If there are any questions that make you uncomfortable, just say pass and I will go on to the next question. If you wish to stop at any time, please just say so and we will stop, no questions asked. If you do not wish for your stories to be public information, please tell me so at the end of the interview. Either way, your family will be able to see your video if that is okay with you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Alright. What is your full name and age?
My name is Jane Mitchell McKeel, and I'm 75.
Alright, and were you an immigrant or a natural-born
A
citizen?
natural born, yeah, natural born.
Were your parents immigrants? If so, where were they from?
No, my family on both sides, as far as I know, have been in this country a long time. Some as early as the 1700s. I don't know most of that history, but from what I do know, I'm descended from people from Northern Europe, like Switzerland and England and Scotland and Ireland, and probably many other countries too that came a long time ago.
Alright. What is your favorite childhood memory and why? Please elaborate if you can.
Gosh, I have a lot of good memories, but I'll just pick out one. I grew up in a small town, and my maternal grandparents had a dairy farm. It was a small dairy farm, about 2 miles from town, so in the country. And that farm was there and belonged in my family until I was 13 when my grandfather died. So all during those early years, till I was 13, we would visit the farm a lot. And occasionally we kids, I have two siblings, two sisters, we would spend the night out there. And I have really fond memories of waking up. My grandmother was a good cook. And then there was a big pasture where the cows, grazed all day, and these dairy cows. And we could play those pastures as much as we wanted, and sometimes my grandmother would pack us a lunch, and we'd take it with us, eat out under a tree. And then the other thing of the farm that I really loved was the barn. And once we were, big enough, we could go anywhere in the barn, up to the loft, the hay loft, and climb, and the corn crib, and all these things that were so exotic because we lived in the town. And then there was an old tractor, not a tractor, it was my grandfather had a team of mules, and see, this was back in the 40s, and the mules would pull this, like the back of a tractor. I don't know what to call it. I don't know farm terms very well, but big thing, had a seat on it and all kinds of equipment with it. And we would get on that and pretend, make up all kinds of things. We were flying off into space or something. And then there was a wagon. We'd get into the wagon, and we just imagined all kinds of things, like crossing the country in a covered wagon, and we just invented games out there. And I'm just so grateful that my own children didn't get that chance to have experience on a farm growing up, and I think that can add a lot to a person's childhood.
Cool. Where exactly did you grow up? What was it like living there? And was segregation prevalent where you lived?
The name of the town I grew up in was Fayetteville. It was a small rural town, the county seat, in a rural part of Tennessee. And yeah, it was, as I said, I was a town girl. Never experienced living on a farm, but it was farm country, definitely. And since I was growing up, I was born in 1938, so I started school during the Second World War in 1944 when I was 6. And so all during the 40s and 50s I was growing up there, and segregation was definitely a part of that whole scene. And yeah, and in fact there was almost a dividing line in the town, so where you had a real racial divide, whites and blacks. And you know, I look back quite a bit and try to understand how that affected me growing up, knowing that here were all these people that just had their side of town was not as nice, and the main thing was their school, the separate schools, of course, everything was separate, and the African American kids, their textbooks were the textbooks that the white kids had used, and then when they were replaced, they were old, they went to the black school. And we knew all that, and then we would go to the movies, and there would be a tiny little part of a balcony that there were, in my little town there were 2 movie theaters, and when I first started going to the movies, it cost 11 cents. And then we were scandalized when it went up to 25 cents when I was in junior high. Anyway, I don't know what that would be in today's money, but there was in the balcony of the movie just a small section was black only, and water fountains, everything was white only, black only. And I'm so grateful that I grew up in a very liberal, enlightened family, I would say. And my mother always reminded us that the black people were just as good as we were, and that the way things were set up was unfair. It was very, very unfair. They didn't have the same protections we did from the law even. And so I did grow up, you know, feeling that this was wrong, but when you're just a kid, you know, what can you do? You just go along, and it was, by the time I was in college, then the civil rights movement was just beginning. You could just see the beginnings of it. So, yeah, segregation was definitely part of my early years.
Okay. Have you ever met anyone famous or interesting? If so, who?
You know, I've met a lot of interesting people, lots. I lived overseas. I knew a lot of people, you know, from other cultures, other countries. I haven't met too many famous people. I've been mulling over that question. I mean, I knew people like ambassadors, and I've shaken hands with a couple of senators, but I think I'll pass as far as going into any detail on that one for now.
Okay.
Maybe if we have time to come back to it.
All right. What's the most fun or interesting thing you have ever done? Feel free to brag.
Oh gosh. Let me ask you to, yeah.
Okay.